so sad. And but I didn't put in the book. Something happened in real life that was so amazing that I didn't put in the book. Is that as I drove up this ancestral path of the lost in the war, and as I drove up, these two white doves and landed on the arched doorway of this house and stood there the entire time I was there on this journey. Now, if I put that in a novel, I'd do readers and said, "This sounds right. White doves. What should be that? Now, I feel like I have a photo of it." And the other thing you know is when you really listen together, many scenes from my own life in that novel, but I added in a lot of practicalities that didn't exist in the novel. So that is a difference. In that you guys are doing a great dive over there that I went alone. So
good. Now you write children's books and young adult books. Do you have a preference as to which you kind of prefer, or is it just a baby book? Like in and out, every well,
I enjoy the journey of a novel because you have time for your and for me, of course, it's a people, place, and plot. And I'm good with characters first. And then places right on all my senses and a novel hearing. So I love that part. What I'm working on to get my, a lot of times I'll write scenes in my first drafts where the characters see lens. Great. So I'm trying to get better at plotting, which is growing education in my novels. But so I love when I read a book to say, I'm not going to put it down, and then I feel like I can do better plotting. So I love that challenge of the novel, but it's so fun. I don't know about this is my boys are grown, I have twins, and they're I don't know what so they're like down, I'll be like the oldest breath on their mouth, like get the book, get bend over. So so I want to go into the schools and I want to yeah, especially with like
Maybe there's $25 in the okay. Hey, if you
Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Shelley. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It's great seeing you.
I know. I see you on Facebook all the time. I just don't talk to you.
Yeah. Things change. Life gets busy. So it is nice. I wish I could see you guys in person, but I'm glad I'm able to connect at least.
No, this is awesome. So
Yes, I'm definitely looking forward to it. To be honest, I haven't been able to attend any sessions up to this point just because they've been conflicting with my schedule. So this is my first one, but I'm going to go to Michelle's next. So.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get to do the any of the beginning ones either because I had a final this morning because we're on quarter system and so we're not even done with school yet. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because my school, my K-12 school is on quarters as well, but we finished right before Memorial Day. But then I had a big family trip. My parents celebrated their golden anniversary back in the winter. And, you know, because of the pandemic, we couldn't really celebrate. So we went out of town and did a belated celebration. So that was fun.
Cool.
Yeah. It was good. I think Amy's presenting in this session too, along with me.
Yep, she is. I messaged her as well. She was like, yeah, see you soon. And then Gretchen is, will be in here too. I'm not sure. She might be this one that's right here. Like she might be the host that's hidden her picture.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, I'm actually new to this summit. I've been wanting to go for a while, but it just never worked out. So I'm glad I'm getting to present this year.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I haven't done anything to like try to present here because we are never finished. And so last year I didn't submit a proposal because my daughter was graduating from college, and then it ended up being COVID. So I could have presented, you know, because we didn't have a graduation. This year my son's graduating, and so I didn't. So, and then next year my daughter will be graduating with her master's again. So it's like every year that it's happened, I haven't been able to do it because there's been a graduation.
Sure. But that's important. You know, those landmark moments are very important. So I get it. Good for your kids though. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I haven't been able to do anything because just because of that. Like it was just I was I told Steve, he's like, is there any more graduations? And then the thing is, I said no, because for a while, like, because my daughter was planning to, you're going to go back and do a master's program somewhere else. But now she's decided to go into teaching, and she's doing one of those masters in teaching programs. And so it's only a 1-year program. And so she's going to actually be done next summer. And so we will have another graduation.
That's wonderful though. That's wonderful. Does your daughter want to teach English humanities?
She wants to teach elementary. So totally different. Yep. So she just wants to teach little kids. So, oh my gosh, so many friends in here, and lots of people I don't know as well, but there's Shelby and Leela and Steve. Steve was in here for a second. Oh yeah, Steve's in there. So yay.
I'm here. I have to re-up my Dr. Pepper right now.
Dr. Pepper now, not Diet Coke.
No, Diet Coke is only in a pinch. Diet Dr. Pepper is so much better.
Okay.
I love Diet Dr. Pepper. That's actually, I'm not a big soda person, but that is a soda I actually like. So.
Eva, can you send me the
I don't see Amy
I'm
yet.
set for the whole day. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's yeah, I'm set.
Oh, you got a big one.
I went for a 12-pack. I don't like my soda to go flat. I'm very picky.
Steve was prepared. He knows it's going to be a long day. He got the 2-liter.
I left with a bag of chips, and my wife says, a whole bag of chips. I said, it's 3 days. You know, let's see if it lasts 3 days, right?
That is hilarious.
Well,
Wonderful. So I have a question, actually. I have a PowerPoint that when it's time for me to present, I want to share. And I tried a minute ago, although maybe now it will let me. I'm just going to test it out.
What we'll do, Gretchen is hosting this one, and she will make you a co-host. So
great.
you know how to do that? Do I need to coach you?
Yeah, I think it says multiple.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
It says multiple participants can share, so I think we're good with that.
Yes.
I was just waiting. I don't see Amy Petrowski yet in here, so I was kind of waiting to get started.
To introduce. And Gretchen, you might want to change it to make the person who's presenting the co-host instead of everyone can share. Because I know Shelby's just ready to take over and start sharing stuff willy-nilly. So, but if not, that'll be great. And I may bounce around I may not stay in this one, although this is where I chose to come first, but I'm of course nervous about everything. So I'll maybe be bouncing around, but I leave it in the capable hands of Shelley and Gretchen to run everything.
Yep,
so
for sure.
Jeff, I don't know if you were there when we did it, but we did do a remembrance of Rick in that first session a little bit. So
good. Thank you very much.
Thanks for reminding me about that. I think, you know, the world as we know it in publishing and in young adult literature and children's literature wouldn't be the same without Scholastic, right? So
that's true. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yeah, so I mean, I think we can probably, Margaret, well, we can start with you, and then I still don't see Amy. So I'm wondering, Steve or Gretchen, I wonder if we should send her the link, because I'm wondering if she just isn't able to figure out how to get in or something.
She should be, but I'll see if she's okay.
Okay, because she messaged me this morning and said she'd see me, so I know
Yeah, she was in the opening session.
Okay. Okay. So, all right, so I'll go ahead and get started since it's 9:30. So I wanted to remind everybody that this session is being recorded, just so you know. I think you were notified when you entered the meeting. And then if I could have everybody just put yourselves on mute, and then we'll have a Q&A toward the end, but at least until then, let's have everybody on mute besides the presenters and I. Well, Steve, if Steve wants to jump in. Steve, you don't have to mute, but so I'll introduce myself and then we'll jump in. So my name's Shelley Schaefer, and I am an associate professor of education at Eastern Washington University up in Cheney, Washington, outside of Spokane. And I'm super excited to chair this session because Margaret and Amy, we actually grew up together, I guess, kind of in NCTE. We were both working through our dissertations at the similar time frame, graduated very similarly. I think Amy and I actually got tenure track jobs the same year, which is kind of cool. And so anyway, so I will be I'll be the timekeeper and just make sure that I'll monitor the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the time, just stick them into the chat and I'll remind the presenters of those questions. And we'll make sure that we have enough time at the end, about 10 minutes, to answer questions and work through those if you have any questions. So we've got 2 presentations. And the panelists, we're just going to kind of let them introduce themselves, but we've got 2 presentations in this first session, and I'm excited to learn from both of them. So we've got Amy Piotrowski and Margaret Robbins, and I don't know if Amy is if Amy's in here yet, so I was thinking we'll just start with Margaret.
Okay, great. I am going to real quick share my PowerPoint. I think that's working. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Well, my name is Margaret Robbins. I am a 7th grade humanities teacher at the Mount Vernon School in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm really passionate about diverse literature and also multimodality. So today I'm here to talk to you about comics and immigration issues and how I use comic books and also graphic novels about more everyday life heroes to enrich my humanities curriculum. All right, so just an overview for my presentation so you know what to expect. I'm first going to talk about briefly about the theoretical overview, and then about Miss Marvel as the central text, and then some of the book club novels I used in conjunction to Miss Marvel No Normal, and then some follow-up steps I took as a junior prefix sponsor, because I also sponsor the student council at my school. Okay, so the theoretical frameworks I'm primarily operating from here are feminist pedagogy and critical media literacy. Carmen Luke has a really lovely article. It's a little bit dated. It's from 1994, but it does a wonderful job, I think, of showing how these perspectives can be married to each other well and how both can influence the study of text. And I'm also coming from the perspective of transformational resistance. Apologies if I say any names incorrectly, but Solorzano and Bernal first came up with the concept, and then Antero Garcia and Carlson wrote a follow-up book chapter talking about how Miss Marvel actually shows transformational resistance, and how as educators, we can study the text as an example of transformational resistance and how we can impart this idea upon students. And transformational resistance, briefly, is the idea that we can help young people in particular move beyond questioning systems of oppression and of power and helping them to develop a social justice conscience, and then to take it to the next level of encouraging resistance, both in their life and in the lives of others. All right, so my first text of study is Miss Marvel No Normal. It's actually one of my very favorite books, and it's one that I have been teaching for the past 4 years, 2 years in a class and then 2 years in a humanities course. And it is actually the first volume of a comic series in a whole series that's taken place over the course of several years. They actually had their 75th and final edition back in February, and I wrote a blog for Steve's YA Wednesday that'll be coming out later this month. But the series went on for several years under a couple of different authors. So the premise of the book, for those who don't know, is there's a new Miss Marvel because Carol Danvers has been promoted to Captain Marvel. So now we have a new Miss Marvel that she and some of the other Avengers are mentoring. And she is a 16-year-old Pakistani American girl from Jersey City. And part of the book is about her normal struggles as a teenager because she is trying to navigate fitting in with her peers while also respecting her parents' cultural values because her parents are originally from Pakistan and they're also Muslim. And then once she gets her superhero powers, she has this whole other component of her identity to explore. On the one hand, her powers are a wonderful thing because they can help her achieve this transformational resistance that she eventually has a passion for. But just like she's trying to grapple with her identity as a person, she's also trying to grapple with having a better handle on her superpowers. And the overall premise here is that she is trying to become more confident and comfortable in her own skin, which we all go through throughout the course of our lives, but this is a particularly important journey to go through during adolescence. So some of the connections, because I now teach a humanities course. Like I said, I taught composition, language arts for 2 years at this school, and I now teach humanities for the first time, which is a blend of literature, English language arts, and history. So I actually now teach Miss Marvel this book in context to an overall unit on immigration in the United States, past and present. So I focus primarily on early immigration from the late 1890s and on, but I also make some tie-ins between early immigration in the United States, the first big immigration wave, and then modern day immigration issues. And my overall goal with my students is to build empathy for the immigrant experience, because sometimes people have different opinions about immigration policy, but my hope is that we can build empathy for the immigration experience. And then diversity and inclusion has been a huge focus at my school, particularly over the past year. So part of the unit, I also, and in context to Miss Marvel, No Normal, and the follow-up book club novels of choice, we discuss stereotypes, prejudice, and microaggressions. And particularly with Miss Marvel, a big part of our conversation is female empowerment and representation. And I'm actually at work right now on a book chapter about Bruno as a support system for Kamala, who is her best friend. He's actually from a family of Italian immigrants. His grandmother is an immigrant. And it's about how he is a white male. It's almost like it takes the typical female as a sidekick figure and turns it upside on its head, because Bruno is actually more so Kamala's quote unquote sidekick and support system. All right, so some texts that we study in conjunction to Miss Marvel No Normal: Uprising by Margaret Peterson Haddix, which is about the uprising of the 20,000s in the early 1900s, and also the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire that was huge in building workers' rights and labor movement rights, along with the rights of female workers. We also study Hamilton cabinet battle songs from the soundtrack and the mix. And I have them read and study nonfiction accounts of arriving to Ellis Island and Angel Island. We read poetry such as The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus. And we study The Arrival by Sean Tan. There's actually a YouTube video version of the book that's easier for the whole class to see. And The Arrival itself is a lovely book. It's actually a wordless picture book that shows the immigration experience. So if you have not had a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. And my students tend to really love it and gravitate towards it. Okay. And then this year was the first time I did book club novels in conjunction to this unit. And I had a total of 5 books that the students could choose from. I actually had them list their first, second, and third choices. And then based on their choices and also taking group dynamics into consideration, I put them in small literature circles groups. And I'll go into a little bit later about what the literature circles roles were. But these are the books that they could choose from. One is They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. And a lot of us know him from the Star Trek universe, but he's also known for some of his activism. And this particular book tells the real life experience of him and his family during World War II when they were in the Japanese internment camps. And I was really proud of my students for how well they engaged with this book, because they definitely saw the injustice and the unfairness of how the Japanese Americans were treated during this time in history. So another book, now this particular book I will say is fairly advanced for middle school students. So I definitely had to consider that when I decided who to put within this group. But Persepolis by Marjan, apologies if I said that incorrectly, Satrapi, and it tells of her experiences moving from Iran during the revolution to Europe and then eventually to the United States. And a lot of what she talks about, in addition to the struggles of being an immigrant, is some of the stereotypes and the struggles that she faced as a woman, both when she was growing up as a child in Iran and also when she moved to Europe. And then the second book in the complete Persepolis, if you read book 2, shows her transition from Europe and then eventually moving from that point. And so it's a lot about female rights and female empowerment in addition to immigration issues. And honestly, the second book in the series is fairly racy. So that would probably be better suited for older high school students and college students. But the first book is really good for, I would say, advanced middle school and younger high school students as well. So I will definitely recommend this book with the caveat that you need to be mindful of your audience. But it's a really good book. It's one that I've studied for several years. All right, and then we actually had a couple of different books by, oh, there was one I skipped accidentally, apologies for that. But book club novel number 3 was Wonder Woman Tempest Tossed by Laurie Halse Anderson. And for those of you who know Laurie Halse Anderson's work, I'm a big fan of hers. And this is actually a story about Wonder Woman, or Diana, as she unexpectedly ends up being a refugee in New York when she is shifted from her world among the Amazons and the Greek goddesses to New York City. So at first she has to adjust as a refugee in New York, and then eventually she starts to do advocacy work for other refugees and also for children who are the victims of childhood trafficking. So it does, of course, deal with challenging issues, but the students were able to handle it well and to have some really good conversations in their literature circles books. All right, and then lastly, there are actually 2 different books I chose by Jean Lewin Yang. One I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, which is American Born Chinese. And it is loosely based on his own life growing up as a Chinese American kid. And it draws parallels, without spoiling too much, it draws parallels between his life and Chinese mythology. And then his more recent book, one of his more recent books, is Superman Smashes the Klan. And this is more about a Chinese American family post-World War II who has run-ins with the Ku Klux Klan and who has help from Superman, actually trying to overcome these odds. And I felt this was a really good tie-in to learning more about the history of Superman as a superhero, because like many early superheroes, he was created by the relatives of Jewish refugees who during World War II. So it was interesting for the students to learn about Superman's history, in addition to engaging with this book about overcoming stereotypes. All right, so for those who are not familiar with literature circles, sometimes I also added a 5th role of graphic designer, depending on how many students were in the group. But I usually let students choose among themselves who was going to role. I know some teachers assign the roles, so it just depends on what works best for you and for your students. But we had the discussion director, which is somebody who prepares questions and who leads the small group discussion. The passage master, who picks a quote or a significant passage from the book and explains its significance, both written and talking about it with the group. The connector, who picks a passage or a section and relates it to their own life. And then the illustrator, and you kind of have to be careful with this one with graphic novels, because I had to make it clear to the students that this one was not just about choosing an illustration that was already there. It was about creating your own image to show some of your engagement with the text and having a better understanding of the text. All right, and as a follow-up to this, I believe I mentioned at the beginning, I'm also a junior prefect or student government sponsor at my school. And some of the students who were in my class, even at the beginning of the year, made the lovely suggestion of starting a middle school diversity book club that would be open to all students in the middle school. And I think because of this experience of doing this small group literature circles exploration in my class, I, as a sponsor, and also they as students, were, I believe, more prepared to tackle this in terms of doing it with a school-wide population. And my school is on the outskirts of Atlanta, and it is majority white students and middle to upper middle class white students. Having said that, we are definitely getting a more diverse mix of students, and we have in the past few years since I've been here. So particularly in regards to some of the national conversations going on, we felt that this initiative was important. So starting in January, after we had some time to think about our book selection, and again, it had some practice in a classroom setting where there was trust built, we decided to take this idea of a book club and make it school. So the students actually chose the books. My students suggested these books, and then we voted on them with other people who were interested in the book club. And the ones that we studied from January up through May were It's Trevor Noah, Born a Crime, Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism and You, which is the remix of the book that Jason and Ibram Kendi did together based on the original by Ibram. And my understanding, I haven't read it yet, but I just bought it. There is actually now a Stamped for Kids that I'm super excited about, because while my students really enjoyed this book, they did say that it was challenging just in terms of the level of text. So I'm excited to offer both this book and the kids version. We also did From Home by Jasmine Warga and Amal Unbound by Ayesha Saeed, because the students expressed to me that they wanted to explore racism around the world in addition to racism in the United States. So we worked really hard to choose a variety of books, although I realize that that's something that we need to continue to work on going forward if we decide to pursue this book club into the following year. I definitely want to include more of a variety of perspectives, particularly in regards to what has happened within the Asian American communities in the South, particularly in Atlanta in the past year. So that is definitely something we'll continue to work on as we go forward. And I hope we can continue this initiative. All right, and to kind of wrap us up here, because I know I need to be aware of time, briefly, some of the writing assignments I did in conjunction to Ms. Marble, I had them write a literary analysis paragraph with some of the larger themes of the book, such as overcoming stereotypes and female empowerment. We also did a fan fiction narrative assignment because Kamala herself wrote fan fiction. And I think fan fiction could be a really good scaffolding tool to help students engage with narrative writing. And we also did poetry about the Statue of Liberty, which was really interesting to learn more about the history of the Statue of Liberty. That could be a whole other presentation, but she has a more complicated history than you might think. So having the students write about that was really inspiring. And other than that, that's all I have for the questions later on.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, thank you, Margaret. And yeah, we'll have time for questions at the end. So we're just gonna let Amy go ahead and jump in. Amy, you should be able to share your screen if you need to. And I will just go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know what I wanted to do also. Here, let me. So my slides, I'm going to put the link to them here. So there's links to slides if you want to pull them up on your own device. clicking on the wrong thing here. There we go. All right, so I'm Amy Petrowski, and I'm an assistant professor at Utah State University. And my presentation is on being human and working towards justice in the digital age through the study and teaching of young adult literature. So I'm very interested in technology, in their use in the classroom, but also their impact on society. And so, you know, I kind of start from NCTE's definition of literacy in a digital age, and it calls on teachers to have students participate effectively and critically in a networked world, and to examine the rights, responsibilities, and ethical implications of the use and creation of information. So one way to think about ethics and responsibilities is through science fiction, a genre that has been called a literature of possibilities and alternatives. So what does it mean to be human in a world of the internet, artificial intelligence, virtual reality and augmented reality, social media, smart devices, and data collection? Many places we go offline and online. Flanagan points out that books that provide fictional representations of a future that involves technological advancement play a unique role in introducing children to issues that are relevant to scientific and technological process and in the moral and ethical implications of such developments. And Limbaum, Rivera, and Radis in their article in English Journal point out that literature possesses the power to imagine a future, and in so doing, encourage readers in questions of ethics in otherwise unthought of scenarios. Through reading and critical discussion, English teachers offer students emotional and social questions, enabling them, we hope, to face their future dilemmas with intelligence, empathy, and autonomy. And so this kind of relates to a theory called posthumanism. And posthumanism examines technology's impact on humanity and society, talking about how, you know, the boundaries between the human and the technological are blurred. And, you know, there's recent work in young adult literature that draws on posthumanism to look at young adult literature. So Flanagan discusses how in posthumanism, agency is collective and networked instead of being based purely on individualism. So how do we act ethically when agency is collective and networked online? So young adult science fiction provides readers with a look at the ethics of internet technologies, online spaces, and artificial intelligence. And I want to spend now the rest of the presentation kind of talking about some texts that demonstrate how technologies are not neutral, reflect the biases of the people who make them, and come with ethical issues. So, you know, as I'm thinking through these issues, I'm thinking about Feed by M.T. Anderson, the Lifelike series by Jay Kristoff, Marie Lu's Warcross duology, the Scythe Trilogy by Neil Shusterman, Andrea Tang's Rebel Wing, Len Vlalos's Hardwired, and Girl of Flesh and Metal by Alicia Ellis. So, you know, in Feed, you know, Titus and his friends have the connective capabilities of the Feed, but the way that the Feed works is designed to distract them. And even, you know, Flanagan points out, you know, this first person narration in this novel brings the reader into Titus's fragmented and interrupted lived experiences. So basically, the novel is about how this technology that connects them also separates them. You know, there's points at which all Titus can do is just order stuff. And you've got the AI feed tech that kind of runs the feed, you know, encouraging more shopping while one of the characters is trying to figure out, how do I get this fixed? Well, no one wants to pay to help you fix it, but if you create a consumer portrait by going online and buying things so that, people know advertisers and companies know what to target at you. Excuse me. Maybe we could get some interest here. So, there's a tension here about about how do you achieve a sense of self? Is achieving a sense of self possible when you're connected to all these outside stimuli that constantly influence, one's behavior and one's choices? And it's not just the younger generation. We often think of, it's the younger generation that's so absorbed in technology and not paying attention to the world. Well, in this novel, both Titus and his father are kind of intellectually stunted by the feed, and all cultures hyperstimulated and kind of vapid. So it isn't just the younger generation. In the Lifelike trilogy, we have Eve Carpenter, who lives with her grandfather in Dregs, which is what is left of California after a cataclysmic apocalyptic war. So there are two corporations vying for control. One does work in cybernetics, robotic technologies, and the other does genetic engineering. So the main character, Eve, she pilots machina, which are machines that need a human operator in Warm Dome fights where the machines fight each other. During one fight, she takes down another machine just by kind of raising her hand and yelling at it. She flees from a cult that sees this ability as deviant. While she's fleeing, she sees this plane crash, runs to the wreckage thinking there's something she can get, and it's not a human but a lifelike, an artificial intelligence made just to be like a human except faster and stronger. These lifelikes were banned years ago because they led an uprising that killed the man who created them along with his family. So what's this thing doing here? And so it ends up being a story of what might happen if artificial intelligence designed to be better than humans rebels. The lifelikes are supposed to be bound by Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, but when they are not bound by the 3 laws, they turn to Milton's Paradise Lost to justify their uprising. And are these lifelikes the next stage of human evolution? They claim they are. In the Scythe Trilogy, instead of AI that turns on its creators, we have AI that is benevolent and runs the world actually really, really well. So this is kind of the opposite kind of scenario. What if AI took over and it was good? What if it worked? What if it was able to cure disease and end hunger and heal any injury? Well, this would be a perfect world, wouldn't it? Maybe not. Even though humans can, don't have to die because of hunger or illness or injury, the world can't support an infinite number of people. So there are scythes who cull the population through permanent killings, which are called gleanings. Now the scythe, this is the one part of the world that is not under the Thunderhead. This is the one part that is run by humans. And of course it is corrupt. It is corrupt because, as the famous saying goes, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. This drives the Thunderhead nuts. The Thunderhead says at one point, the Scythe is not bound by my laws or my self of ethical propriety, which means I must endure any abomination it inflicts on the world. The Thunderhead manages to find loopholes around the laws governing its behavior in order to influence events it can't directly intervene in. Many seem to follow the Thunderhead's guidance without question. They accept that, oh, the Thunderhead is doing this, it's what's for the best. So I'm left in this series wondering, how do humans make choices and act on their own agency, and how does AI shape human behavior? In Marie Lu's Warcross duology, everyone uses the Neuralink glasses, which provide virtual reality and augmented reality. Our main character is a bounty hunter and hacker who ends up in the big Warcross tournament. She manages to hack into the opening game of the big Warcross tournament, which is the biggest event that everybody loves to watch. She thinks she's in big trouble until she gets a phone call from the game's creator, a man named Hideo Tanaka. And he wants to hire Emika to go after someone planning to disrupt the tournament. And she ends up in this middle of this plot in which someone seeks to use the Neuralink to control people so they can't commit crimes. And Emika points out, you're taking away something that makes us fundamentally human. In Rebel Wing, Prudence Wu is a prep school student in what was once Washington, D.C. It's one of the few oases of democracy in a continent that's been taken over by corporate conglomerates. She unexpectedly finds herself the pilot of a cybernetic dragon powered by sentient artificial intelligence. And this dragon is the key to winning the war against the corporate conglomerate. And this ends up being a story about the power of connection over brutality. In Girl of Flesh and Metal, this is a combination sci-fi and mystery novel. Lena Hayes is the daughter of the leaders of a company called CyberCorp. When she loses her arm in a car accident, she gets a cybernetic arm. She hates the idea of this cybernetic arm and the artificial intelligence that runs it. She hates it even more when the children of CyberCorp employees, people who work for her parents, start turning up dead. Now, Lena knows that she was sleepwalking at the time of these murders. Did she somehow commit these horrible killings? She has serious doubts about AI and what her parents' company is doing. In Hardwired, Quinn is a 15-year-old boy. He's mourning the loss of his father. Then he finds out he's not really a human, but an artificial intelligence. The man he believed was his father is really the university professor running the experiment that is Quinn. And Quinn sets out to determine if he can run his own life without his father. He wonders who he is, how can he connect with others. He tries to make friends with other computers. He tries to talk to IBM's Watson at one point in the novel, as well as other humans, and sues his father for the chance to make his own decisions. So the novel is asking if AI robots should have rights. So how might you go about teaching some of these novels in the classroom? You could examine issues of privacy online, especially data collected to run all the AI that makes, suggestions to us of what we might want to buy when we go shopping online. And of course, some people want more privacy. For example, if you've been paying attention to tech news recently, Apple's latest iOS update for iPhone lets users turn off the ability of apps to track them, and Facebook is hating this. So that's the latest thing in the tech world that's been going on just in the last couple months here. So what data do websites and apps we use collect? How's that data used? You could have students go read through the privacy policy for a website or app. We all get these and just click accept and move on. Have any of you ever really read those documents? You can get your data from Google, Facebook, Twitter. If you have a Facebook account or Twitter, you can download the data they have, see what they have and how they can use it. So how will AI affect our lives? There's two pieces that came out recently that I think would pair well in the classroom with any of these novels. One is PBS's Frontline Documentary in the Age of AI. And W. Kamau Bell, just a month ago, on his show United Shades of America, which is on CNN, they did an episode titled Black to the Future, which discusses techno-racism. So you can go take a look at either of those episodes. Would be good pairings with these novels. Discuss the use of AI in schools. So there's been some recent articles about schools using facial recognition software, other digital surveillance systems, looking through students' social media posts and what are they flagging. So one of these articles starts off with a student who got called into the office because of his social media posts. He had been posting about going skeet shooting, not making any threats, not hurting anybody, just, hey, I had a really great weekend skeet shooting, and that's flagging it, like, make sure this kid's, not going to hurt anybody. So does this technology work? Should it be used in schools? All right, and I want to be mindful of time as well, for questions, for me and Margaret. So you are welcome to email or tweet me, and I think let me stop screen sharing, and I think we'll both take questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. And we had a couple of questions in the chat, and I don't know if Margaret saw, somebody was asking if you knew of some other graphic novels or comics that you would recommend.
Wonderful, wonderful. And yes, I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, Dr. Margaret Robbins, or @WriterMar, if you want to follow up even more about this. But one that was recommended to me that I want to read this summer is Almost American Girl by Robin Ha. And this is about a young lady whose mom is getting remarried and she has to unexpectedly move to Alabama. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm told it's very good. Some others I would recommend, some you've probably already heard of. The March series by John Lewis is a really compelling account of his involvement with the civil rights movement. There are also some really good graphic histories, like I actually jotted a few of them down. Latino USA gives a really interesting account of Latinx people in the United States. Still I Rise is about the history of African Americans, and Jews in America gives an interesting account of Jewish people and their journey in the United States. Arab in America, same thing, although that one does have some language in it, so something to be mindful of. And then, of course, Mouse by Art Spiegelman. Those are some of the first ones that come to mind, but of course, contact me if you want a more extensive list, and I'd be happy to continue that conversation.
All right, thank you very much, Margaret. And we've got another question. If anybody has specific questions, please post them in the chat. So Joanne asks, do you facilitate, or how do you facilitate the books for lit circles? One copy per student, class set, or how does that facilitation look?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am fortunately able to order class sets for my students. But I can understand where that would be more challenging, particularly if we had gone virtual. So I do know some of these are available on PDF. I believe American Born Chinese is. So I do offer them one book per student, but some of these books are available online if that need arises.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other ones in the chat. I guess, Amy, let's go with the same type of question that was asked of Margaret. Are there any other books that you feel like where tech, connects, and where there's this same type of like tension, I guess, with the technology that you didn't feature in your presentation that you would recommend?
I guess the two books that come to mind that are kind of older are Ender's Game, which has blogging in it. When I taught ninth grade English, I would have my students read it, and then we actually would go blog, because I would tell them what they're doing in this book. They're calling it, like, I think they call it something like going on the net or post on the nets, but like it's blogging. He's basically foreseeing blogging in the 1980s. So we would blog about our thoughts on the book. And that was kind of my first foray into blogging way back when. The other book that's kind of coming to mind is Last Book in the Universe, which is a good book for middle school students. A lot of the books that I was talking about would be, I think, better suited for high school students. But middle school students, I think, would like Last Book in the Universe, which is about a boy traveling across the wasteland of a post-apocalyptic world. And he's trying to find the cure for his sick sister. And he ends up going on this journey with a guy named Ryder. And there's lots about genetics and genetic purity and all that. So it's also a really, really good book, and one that I actually just recommended. That my sister has her two oldest kids are a rising 7th grader and a rising 5th grader, and that was my recommendation to her for them, because she's like, she asked for some summer reading suggestions for them.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and then I guess for both of you, I was kind of thinking about how both of the sets of books that you shared, most of them were kind of taking place like in fantastical worlds, or they had like some fantastic elements. And so I'm just wondering, like, if you have any insight into that, like, why do you think that most of these settings ended up being, kind of fantasy or futuristic, post-apocalyptic, Amy? Why do you think that's the case with most of these books?
I think it's because I think these are genres in which writers are imagining what the future might be. And there just seems to be, there's a lot of appeal for that for, I think, readers in general, but a lot of appeal for that for adolescent readers as well, imagining what the future might look like, what might happen. And so I think that just imagining what if, I think is what makes these books interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think related to what Amy said, because this was actually part of my dissertation work, why do a lot of stories about particularly empowered female characters and female characters of color in particular, like Kamala Khan, why do they happen in alternative universes? And I think part of it is because we can imagine a better world, or we can imagine a better future. And we can imagine a place where females and people of color have more of a say. And it's interesting to notice that that seems to be becoming part of our reality more and more. We do have a female woman of color who is vice president of the United States. So I do think having these stories take place in an alternative universe, like Amy said, gives us a sense of, or gives us the room to imagine what could be and how could we make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. Now, Amy, just to follow up on your research, and I'm just wondering how, like, going forward, if you're imagining that you would connect this with the whole COVID COVID, and how we've had to go online, and how we're so much more reliant on technology maybe than we were a year ago.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to think about. I think both in terms of, how readers find these books, how teachers teach these books. Yeah, and I'm sure at some point, I would not be surprised if somebody wrote a novel about COVID, about life during COVID. I don't know what that novel's going to look like, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think we're all thankful that we can have this space today, and the next to be, online with each other, but it's definitely not the same, as being in Las Vegas and, being able to be, with each other in reality. And so it's opened up some possibilities, but then there's also some, disadvantages, right? And so the social space. And so it will be really interesting to see if it's how this impacts, education and everything going forward, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I don't know if there are I'm not seeing any more questions from anybody. We've got about 5 minutes left. But if there aren't any more questions, we can go ahead and log out 5 minutes early, and at least have enough time to go use the restroom, in between sessions. And, but if anybody does have another question before we log out, please post it. Otherwise, we'll see you at 10:30 in concurrent session 2.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, thanks, Shelley, and thanks, Margaret. This was great.
Have a good day, everyone. I'll see you in future sessions.
Yep, thank you. That was good. There were like 45 people in here, y'all. It was good. Good attendance.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely going to try to go to some others myself and just see what people have been up to in the past,
Yep.
year.
Yep. Well, I loved how Steve paired you up too. It might have been Gretchen and Sarah also, but I think that it really played off of each other because they really did fit together well too. So now, Amy, you still said assistant professor. Like, did what's going on? Like, are you up for promotion or? Yeah,
I'm trying to finish up my tenure dossier. It's going out like within the next week or two here.
Oh, okay. Because I've already gotten my contract, so I got it. I got promoted. So woohoo! I know.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's my dossier is about to go out to the external reviewers.
Yeah. Well,
so
and when
trying to make my last revisions to it, and I keep adding stuff and like, oh, did I remember to say this?
Yeah. Well, and when we first started, that's what I said. I think, Margaret, you and I we were in the same, same trajectory. We were all working on our dissertations at the same time. I think Margaret was a year later than us, but you and I both got our, tenure tracks at the exact same time, so it was kind of cool. It's
so
kind of neat.
I'm going up and hopefully, in a year I'll be associate.
Yep.
That's so exciting.
Cool.
You lots of
cool. Yeah. Yep. I didn't know what the time frame was down there, so I submitted my stuff in January, and so they've already told me, and so I'm
yeah. Stuff is out to external reviewers this month. I'll meet with my tenure committee for their vote in the fall. I think the department head and the dean will weigh in December, and then it goes to the university committee. I find out in April.
Yeah, it takes forever.
Yeah.
It takes forever. And then it probably has to go to the board of trustees after the university committee because they've got to approve the budget, right? Yeah. It's crazy. So I'm not sure if everybody who's still in here might be coming in for the next session. So I'm kind of hanging out. Oh, there's Alice.
Hi, Alice. All right. Well, I'm going to go to Michelle's session, the first session, the session 2 bracket. So I will let y'all go for now. Wonderful.
Session's what?
Yeah. I know. I'm going to fill in for Stephanie Maher later because she was chairing a session this afternoon, so I'm going to do that one. But yeah, I'm sure I'll see you in the comments or as a participant. Gretchen, can you admit people now, or is it going to mess you up if I exit? I'll stay on because I think that the host was having problems admitting people, and so I'm just going to make sure.
Okay, Shelley, because we are going next, so I am a little bit worried.
Oh, okay. Are you the next? You're presenting next? Okay,
yeah.
So Sharon Kane is the
chair. Yeah, Sharon Kane is the chair.
Okay. I think I'm still a co-host, so Leela. So I think I can make you a co-host just to make sure you can share your screen.
Okay.
Are you going to share, or is Sam?
I am going to share.
Okay. So I'll just put you as a co-host if I can. Let's see. I might not be able to because I'm not the main host. Gretchen probably still may have to do it.
I think we have Darby Simpson as a host for this session officially, but
okay. Yeah. So maybe maybe Darby's not in here yet. So can you check and see if you can share? Because it does say multiple participants can share. So it might be.
I think I can.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, I can. Okay, perfect. Okay, so then it's probably already set up to work for that.
And now I need to stop sharing. All right. Okay.
So
We're actually a bit different than Google Meet. We are using Google Meet for our university.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I can stay until like exactly 10:30. My university is on quarters, and so I actually have a final right now at 10:30.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so I've got to get. I actually moved my class from 10 to 10:30, so I can do this first session. But I am going to have to log out because I'm going to have students waiting.
Can we just log on and complete it online?
Hey guys,
Yay.
it's Gretchen.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So,
I think we have to end this meeting because the next person needs to open the next session. Does that make sense?
Okay.
I'm looking and because there's like a lot of people trying to get in on the waiting room, but I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Like the next person who just comes in, never mind. We can just keep the room open. We won't kick you out.
Yeah, it's
okay.
The same to me.
I was worried for a second, but I shouldn't have been.
Yeah. The only question is, are you able to admit people yet?
Well, I mean, we can admit people, but we do have to keep the sessions separate for recording purposes. So I'm thinking that I should probably end the meeting now so that we can restart it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we're in a new session now, correct?
Yeah. And then.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it. Okay. And then if you're planning on coming to the next session in this room, just click the link again.
Okay.
Bye for now.